The day I walked through my front door at 2:17 in the afternoon, my life did not explode. Instead, it went silent. It was not the kind of silence that feels peaceful. It was the kind that feels as if your soul already understands something that your mind is still attempting to process. I remember this because silence carries weight when your world is about to split in half. My name is Andre Wallace, and for 12 years, I believed I was constructing something unbreakable. Not perfect, but real. I was not a billionaire. I was not some flashy social media husband posting fake smiles and rented vacations. I was a long-haul logistics supervisor from Charlotte, North Carolina. I worked 58 hours a week, wore steel-toe boots, and endured early mornings and late nights. I was the kind of man who kept his promises even when it caused him pain. I believed in routine. Every morning at 5:30, I made coffee before my wife Vanessa woke up, French vanilla creamer with 2 sugars. I packed lunches on weekdays. I handled the mortgage, the car notes, and the school tuition for her younger sister after her mother became sick. I did all of this because I loved that woman deeply, in the foolish way some men do when they mistake sacrifice for security. Vanessa had a smile that used to calm storms inside me. When we met, she was working at a bookstore downtown, wearing gold hoop earrings and reading Toni Morrison behind the register when customer traffic was slow. She was not loud. She was observant. And back then, that felt rare. She used to tell me, "Andre, you make me feel safe." I built my entire identity around that sentence. Safe. The funny thing about men like me is that we do not always notice when safe becomes predictable, and predictable becomes invisible. That Thursday should have been normal. I was supposed to be in Atlanta overseeing a delayed shipment issue. But halfway there, our regional director called. A warehouse electrical failure had occurred. The meeting was cancelled. I was to return home on standby. For the first time in perhaps 3 years, I was headed home before sunset on a weekday. I even smiled while driving back. I thought maybe I would surprise Vanessa. Maybe I would bring home those honey-glazed wings she liked from the spot on Betty's Ford Road. Maybe we would sit on the patio. Maybe we would remember each other. That is how blind hope works, it dresses itself as optimism. By 2:17 p.m., I pulled into the driveway, and the first thing I noticed was a black Escalade that I did not recognize. Then a silver BMW, then a red Dodge Charger parked halfway on the curb, as if whoever drove it had no reason to care. I sat there for a second with the engine running and my hands on the wheel, not angry, just confused. Vanessa had friends. She hosted brunches sometimes, her self-care collective, she called it. But on a Thursday in the middle of the day, something in my chest tightened. Still, I told myself not to be paranoid because denial is a powerful drug when the truth threatens your identity. I grabbed my laptop bag, stepped out, and noticed that the front door was not fully closed, just cracked. And then I heard it, laughter. Male laughter. Not one voice, but multiple. Deep, comfortable, familiar. The kind of comfort that should never exist in another man's house. I froze. Maybe family, I thought. Maybe contractors. Maybe. Then I heard Vanessa, breathless, laughing in a way I had not heard in years. Not polite laughter, not public laughter, but intimate laughter, the kind that once belonged to me. Stories like this do not simply begin with betrayal. They begin long before the moment you catch it. They begin with ignored instincts and dismissed red flags, the small ways someone slowly teaches you not to trust yourself. I stepped inside quietly, and what I saw in my living room still visits me sometimes. For men, not boys, but men, grown men. One on my couch with his shoes on my glass coffee table. One pouring my 12-year Macallan like he paid for it. One leaning against the kitchen counter. And one wearing my robe. My robe. The grey cashmere anniversary gift Vanessa bought me 2 Christmases ago. And my wife stood there in silk I had never seen before, barefoot, with her hair undone, holding a wine glass, looking less like a wife and more like a stranger wearing her face. For a second, nobody moved. Nobody breathed. It was almost cinematic, as if reality itself could not believe this was happening. Then Vanessa's face changed. Color drained from her skin. Her hand twitched. Andre, that was all she got out. One word, my name, but not spoken with love. Spoken with fear. And I wish I could tell you that I snapped, that I flipped tables, started swinging, became one of those viral stories. But rage, real rage, is colder than that. I simply looked at each face, studied them, burned them into my memory because something inside me, ancient and quiet, took over. The man in my robe smacked nervously and stood up as if this was some misunderstanding. Yo, man, it's not, I held up my hand, and he stopped talking. I set my laptop back down by the door, took off my watch, and placed it carefully on the entry table. Then I asked one question, not shouted, not emotional, just clear, how long? Vanessa started crying immediately, which told me everything. Not, this isn't what it looks like. Not, I can explain. Just tears. Because guilt always skips explanation when the evidence is breathing in front of you. Andre, please, how long? Her lips trembled. And then came the answer that hit harder than the scene itself, almost 3 years. 3 years. Do you understand what that means? That means anniversaries, birthdays, Sunday prayers, family cookouts, hospital visits when my father died, 3 years of me grieving, grinding, and providing while living inside a joke I did not know existed. One of the men, older, with a beard and an expensive watch, actually had the nerve to say, "Bro, maybe y'all should talk privately." Bro, as if masculinity had some brotherhood code after he had been drinking from my kitchen. I looked him dead in the eye and said, "No. I want everybody comfortable, since you're being comfortable." Nobody spoke after that. Vanessa collapsed into tears, but something about it felt strange, not remorse, but exposure. See, there is a difference. Some people are not sorry they hurt you. They are sorry that the version of you they manipulated has finally disappeared. I walked to the wall near our hallway, picked up our framed wedding photo from 2017, her in lace, me in my navy uniform, two people smiling as if vows meant armor. I stared at it for maybe 5 seconds. Then I placed it face down. Not smashed, just face down, because destruction would have been too easy. No, I wanted understanding. I wanted context. I wanted to know who I had really married. So I did something Vanessa never expected. I sat down right there in the living room across from all of them. Calmly, I said, "Everybody sit." Confusion spread instantly. But authority does not always come from volume. Sometimes it comes from a man with nothing left to fear. And one by one, they sat. For the next 40 minutes, my house became a courtroom. I learned names, occupations, and how they met her, a personal trainer, a real estate broker, a nightclub owner, and one was my cousin's business partner. That one nearly made me laugh because betrayal really does travel in circles. But the deeper truth was that this was not random cheating. This was architecture. Vanessa had built compartments, different lies for different men. To one, I was abusive. To another, emotionally absent. To another, we were basically separated. To one of them, she said I was infertile and controlling. I almost admired the strategy, almost. Because manipulation at that level takes practice. And suddenly, the woman I thought was drifting looked more like someone conducting social experiments. But then came the twist I never saw coming. The man with the beard, the broker, looked at Vanessa and said, "Wait, you told me he owned this house." Silence. I turned slowly. Vanessa said nothing. He frowned. You said the property was in your name. My stomach dropped, not from heartbreak but from pattern recognition. See, I work in logistics. I track details, contracts, movement, paperwork. And in that exact moment, 1,000 small memories connected, the random request to simplify financial paperwork, her sudden interest in estate planning, her pushing me to sign documents when I was exhausted, the refinancing conversation I had barely reviewed 6 months ago. No. 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 I stood up so fast that my chair scraped the hardwood floor. I went straight to my office, pulled open the locked filing drawer, and started flipping through tax records, insurance documents, mortgage amendments. And then there it was, a property transfer packet with forged digital signatures, LLC restructuring, power of attorney manipulation, pages I never legally approved. My entire house was being positioned for theft. Not just betrayal, but erasure. This was not infidelity. This was a long game, a setup, a coordinated financial ambush disguised as marriage. And suddenly, the room downstairs made sense, the parties, the arrogance, the comfort. They were not just disrespecting me. Some of them thought I was already obsolete. That realization did something terrifying. It did not break me. It clarified me. I walked back downstairs holding the folder. Vanessa saw it, and for the first time, she did not look guilty. She looked scared, real fear. Andre, I was going to explain. No, I said quietly. You were going to finish. One of the men stood up immediately. Hold on. I ain't part of no fraud. Oh, I know, I replied. Most predators don't realize they're in another predator's ecosystem. That line hit because it was true. Half these men thought they were players, but sitting in my living room, they started realizing they may have been recruited, used just like me. I looked at Vanessa. Really looked. And I saw something I had missed for years. Vanessa did not love chaos. She loved leverage. Attention was leverage. Pity was leverage. Sex was leverage. Marriage was infrastructure. And perhaps the cruelest part was that there were moments she probably did love me, but not enough to stop calculating. That is the danger of loving someone who sees relationships as opportunity. You mistake access for intimacy. By evening, every man had left quietly, some embarrassed, some angry. One even apologized. But apologies from strangers cannot repair deception from home. Vanessa sat on the floor near the staircase for over an hour, silent, waiting for me to scream, beg, or threaten. Instead, I made one phone call, to my old college friend, Denise Carter, the sharpest forensic attorney in Mecklenburg County, a woman who once told me, Andre, your problem is you think loyalty protects you from strategy. At the time, I laughed. Now, I finally understood. Denise, I said when she answered, I need you. She paused. Is this marriage or prison? I looked directly at Vanessa, then at the forged papers in my hand, and for the first time all day, I smiled. Depends how good you are. That night, Vanessa slept in the guest room, or perhaps she did not sleep at all. I would not know, because I spent the next 6 hours uncovering a woman I had never truly met, hidden emails, burner accounts, encrypted folders, insurance modifications, private dinner receipts, voice notes. By 3:12 a.m., I discovered something worse than cheating, worse than theft, worse than humiliation. Vanessa was not acting alone. And the one person helping her was someone I had trusted since childhood. When I saw the name, my blood ran cold. Because betrayal from a spouse can wound you, but betrayal from blood, that can rewrite your entire understanding of family. I leaned back in my chair, stared into the darkness, and whispered something I never thought I would say. They really thought I wouldn't survive this. But survival was no longer the plan. And as the sun began to rise over Charlotte, I opened Denise's message, 3 words, do not confront. Then another, I found bigger. And in that moment, I realized my marriage was not falling apart. It was exposing something far more dangerous, something that had been building around me for years, something bigger than Vanessa, bigger than infidelity, bigger than greed. I thought I came home early and caught my wife cheating. I was wrong. I came home early and interrupted a war I did not even know I was losing. At 3:43 that morning, while most of Charlotte slept and my wife sat somewhere behind a locked guest room door, probably rehearsing lies, I stared at Denise Carter's email like it was a loaded weapon. The subject line read, "Andre, this is organized." Attached were screenshots, public records, shell company filings, and something that made my hands go numb, a pattern. Not just one forged property maneuver, but three. 3 previous men, 3 separate counties, 3 suspicious relationships, 3 financial collapses. And in every case, Vanessa, or Nessa Vale, V. Carter, or Anna Brooks, depending on the paperwork, had been connected to men who experienced devastating legal confusion shortly before divorce, foreclosure, or business liquidation. My wife was not improvising. She was evolving. I opened the first file, a man named Jerome Ellis from Durham, a small trucking business owner. The relationship lasted 4 years. The engagement broke after his company was drained through unauthorized credit leverage and falsified co-signatures. No charges were filed. He blamed himself publicly and called it depression. Second file, Marcus Reed from Colombia, a recently widowed contractor who moved a woman into his home 18 months after his wife's death. The house was refinanced. Life insurance beneficiaries were modified. He caught discrepancies before final transfer. She vanished. No prosecution. Third, a retired military officer in Savannah. A short engagement. A joint LLC fraud attempt that failed. Again, she disappeared. Then she met me. Not at random. Not fate. Not love at first sight. No, my bookstore romance, that quiet woman reading Toni Morrison, according to Denise's timeline, that bookstore job started just 11 days before I first walked in. 11 days. I sat there in my home office and felt a pain deeper than heartbreak, because heartbreak says, I love the wrong person. This said, I may have been chosen. There is a special kind of grief that comes when your happiest memory suddenly looks staged. Our first date, her favorite flowers, the accidental way she bumped into my aunt at church, the way she cried when I introduced her to my mother. How much of it was real? How much of me did she study before becoming what I needed? By 4:15 a.m., Denise called. Listen carefully, she said. Her voice was surgical, no emotion, no confrontation. From this point forward, everything is evidence. I rubbed my face. You're telling me I married a con artist? No, Denise replied. I'm telling you married one layer of a larger machine. That sentence changed everything. Because Denise had found financial links between Vanessa and my cousin Darius Wallace. Darius Wallace, the same boy I grew up with. The same cousin who spent summers at my mother's house. The same man I loaned $40,000 to when his construction company nearly collapsed. The same man who stood beside me at my wedding. And according to wire transfers, Darius had received consulting payments from one of Vanessa's shell LLCs for 18 months. 18 months. I could not even process anger yet. I just felt hollow, as if every room in my life had hidden doors. Denise continued, we think they were setting you up for incapacitation. What? Medical power of attorney, financial override, asset transfer. Andre, your recent insurance changes. My chest tightened. Vanessa had insisted on updating my policy after I started having stress migraines. She said it was responsible. Denise exhaled. She increased her control clauses. I went cold. This was not just theft anymore. This was strategic replacement. Perhaps not murder, but if I became legally unstable, overworked, or medicated incorrectly, she would not need to kill me, just outmaneuver me. And suddenly, all those wellness vitamins she kept encouraging, the sleep supplements, the "you work too hard, baby, take this" speeches, I stood up so fast I nearly knocked my chair over. I went straight to the kitchen, opened the cabinet, took every supplement bottle, and photographed the labels, prescription names, and batch numbers. "Send all of it," Denise said immediately. By sunrise, my home no longer felt like home. It felt like a crime scene wearing family portraits. But here is the thing about betrayal: the first instinct is destruction. The smarter instinct is documentation. So I played hurt, not suspicious, not strategic, just hurt. And for the next 10 days, I became the version of Andre they expected: quiet, withdrawn, emotionally devastated. I let Vanessa think I was shattered. I slept separately, barely spoke, ate little, and even let her catch me staring blankly at our wedding photo once. Do you know what manipulative people do when they think they have broken you? They rush. And rushed people make mistakes. Vanessa started moving faster: phone calls on the patio, encrypted messaging spikes, 2 unusual meetings with Darius, 1 visit to a private notary office. And because Denise had already involved a discreet investigator, we saw all of it. It turned out that they believed I was preparing for divorce, not war. Their revised strategy was to push me into a fast emotional settlement, convince me to keep things private, offer me dignity, take the assets, and disappear. What they did not know was that I had already frozen accounts, flagged title offices, secured digital forensics, and filed a sealed fraud petition. I was not reacting anymore. I was positioning. And then came Sunday dinner at my mother's house, the place where every Wallace birthday, graduation, funeral planning, and Christmas had happened for 30 years. Vanessa insisted on attending. Of course she did. Predators love familiar stages. Darius came too, smiling, joking, calling me big cuz as if history itself was not choking. Now understand this: I did not choose Sunday for revenge. I chose it for revelation, because some lies deserve witnesses. Dinner started normally: candied yams, roast chicken, my mother's jazz playlist low in the background. Vanessa even helped plate food as if she were not under forensic review. Then halfway through dessert, I stood up and tapped my glass. Before we finish, I want to thank everyone. My mother smiled. Darius leaned back casually. Vanessa looked confused. I nodded slowly. Especially my wife and my cousin. Silence. I placed folders on the table, 1 for my mother, 1 for my uncle, 1 for Darius, 1 for Vanessa. Nobody moved. Then I said the sentence that split generations: you both should probably explain why you've been trying to steal from me. My mother froze. Darius laughed first, a big mistake, because guilty people often mistake calm for bluffing. Man, what are you talking about? I slid printed wire transfers across the table, then forged signatures, then shell company maps, then surveillance stills. Vanessa did not even open hers. She knew. Darius' smile vanished in stages, like bad acting collapsing under real light. My uncle, his father, started reading, then rereading, then stood up so violently that his chair hit the floor. Darius, he said, not loud, but was disappointed. I will never forget that sound. Vanessa tried tears again. Wrong room. My mother was not me. She looked at Vanessa with a level of silence I had only seen once before, at my father's funeral. You came into my home, she said carefully, and called me Mama. Vanessa started shaking. And then Darius broke. See, pressure reveals hierarchy. It turned out that Darius was not mastermind material, he was greedy but weak. He confessed faster than I expected. Vanessa had approached him 2 years earlier after discovering my business expansion plans. She wanted leverage. Darius wanted debt relief. Together, They built a worst-case backup. If my regional promotion and property acquisitions expanded, they would secure legal pathways into ownership structures. If my health declined, even better. And here is the psychological lesson nobody talks about: some betrayal is not personal hatred. It is proximity plus opportunity. They did not destroy me because I was cruel. They targeted me because I was stable. Because discipline often looks exploitable to people who confuse kindness for blindness. By the end of that night, Vanessa was out, not metaphorically, but physically. My mother handed her purse to her and said, "Leave the key." Darius's father disowned his role in the business and cooperated with legal counsel immediately. Family fractures do not heal neatly, but truth at least stops infection. Over the next 4 months, the case widened: financial fraud, forgery, conspiracy, civil damages. Vanessa's prior patterns were reopened in 2 states. Other men came forward: Jerome, Marcus, even the retired officer. And something strange happened. What started as my humiliation became a chain-breaking event, because exposure gave language to men who had blamed themselves in silence. That mattered to me more than revenge, more than headlines. Because shame thrives in isolation, but patterns collapse under recognition. Vanessa eventually took a plea deal. No dramatic courtroom monologue, no movie ending, just consequences. Calculated people always believe they are the smartest person in the room until documentation enters. As for Darius, prison was not his deepest punishment. Irrelevance was. He lost business credibility, family trust, and the one currency greedy men worship: access. And me. I wish I could say I healed quickly. I did not. Healing is not cinematic. It is awkward, quiet, sometimes embarrassing. There were mornings I questioned my instinct. Nights I replayed everything. Months where kindness felt dangerous. But eventually, I learned something no betrayal could take: being deceived does not mean you were foolish. Sometimes it means you were sincere in a world that rewards performance. And sincerity, when sharpened by wisdom, becomes something dangerous to manipulators. 2 years later, I sold that house, not because they ruined it, but because I refused to build my future inside a museum of deception. I bought land outside Charlotte and built something smaller, cleaner, intentional. I started mentoring men rebuilding after financial and emotional devastation, not on some fake alpha male nonsense, but real rebuilding: paperwork, boundaries, pattern recognition, self-respect. Because broken trust can either turn you bitter or brilliant. And one evening, while unpacking books in my new office, I found that old wedding photo still face down in a storage bin. I stared at it for a long time. Then I did something I never expected: I smiled. Not because it did not hurt, but because that man in the picture, the one who thought love alone was enough, he had to exist for this version of me to be born. So I thanked him. Then I threw it away. Sometimes betrayal does not destroy you. It introduces you to the part of yourself that survival never required, but wisdom does. And if this story made you think differently, pay attention to the patterns people hope you will excuse. Because not every attack looks like violence. Some arrive as affection with paperwork.